first of all, I will explain what a programming language is. A programming language is a way for humans to give instruction to the computer. So one thing you need to understand is that the computer understands only binary, which is zeros and one. That's the language of the computer, zeros and one. So what programming language allows us to do is that it allows us to write instructions in a way that is closer to human language, which then gets translated into machine code. So a programming language is a way that we humans give instructions to the computer. So that's what a programming language is. So there are basically, I'll classify programming languages into two groups. There is the high level programming language and there is the low level programming language. So there are other classifications, but generally for the sake of this class, I'll just classify them into two: the high level language and the low level programming language. So for the low level programming language, you can call that the what's it called machine language. It is very difficult for humans to interpret, but it is easy for machines to interpret. So the low level language is easier for machines to interpret, while it is harder for humans to interpret. But high level language, those ones they are human friendly. So humans, it's very easy for humans to understand high level programming language. So the difference between low level language and high level language is that low level language is easier for machines to understand, while high level language is easier for humans to understand. Or I can give the example. So examples of low level language is assembly language. I know that some of you would have heard about assembly language. Assembly language. Another example of low language is machine code. So for machine code, the only the computer processor understands that, so it is executed directly. So examples of high level languages is JavaScript that we'll be treating today. Python is high level language, but we'll come back to that. Now, under high level languages, we have two categories. There is the compiled language and there is the interpreted language. For the compiled language, the code is translated into machine code before running. And examples of compiled languages are C, C++, among others. Then examples of interpreted language, the code is executed. Okay, so as I was saying, for examples of interpreted languages, Python and JavaScript. So those are examples of interpreted languages. And right now I'm still laying foundations. I'm laying foundations. So today we'll be treating JavaScript. So now what is JavaScript? JavaScript is a high-level interpreted programming language used mainly to make web pages interactive. So JavaScript, as I said earlier, is an example of interpreted language and is also high-level language. So it is very easy for developers to understand JavaScript. And one thing you should know about JavaScript is that it runs inside web browsers like Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Safari, and so on and so forth. So you can read up about origins of JavaScript. Now, what can JavaScript do? JavaScript helps us to helps us to add interactivity to the web and also for DOM manipulation. Another thing JavaScript can do is for backend and API integration. Don't worry, in the course of these lessons, we are going to do more of backend stuff since I'm a backend developer. So JavaScript too can be used for mobile and desktop applications, and JavaScript can be used for game development and artificial intelligence. So JavaScript is an all-round language. So JavaScript is all-round. So enough of stories. Let's dive right into coding about JavaScript. That JavaScript is a high-level interpreted programming language used mainly to make web pages interactive. JavaScript is a high-level interpreted programming language used to make web pages interactive. So now, as I said, in every language, whether low level and high level, every language has its own syntax. It has its own rules that governs how that language works. So that's what we'll be learning in this class and the other classes. So we'll be learning the syntax, how it works, the rules governing this particular language. So first of all, we're going to define what a variable is. We're going to define what variable is. I hope you can see my screen. If you look at the left hand side, I wrote variable. So a variable is a named memory reference or a storage location that holds a value. I will explain it again. A variable, let me write that. A variable is a named memory reference or storage location. I will explain what each of these terms means. A storage location or a label that holds a value which can be retrieved. I will explain what all this means, or modified during execution of a program. All right, as I said, a variable is a named memory reference or a storage location or a label that holds value. So what all this grammar I'm speaking means is that a variable is like a container used to store information that can be reused or or changed later. Let me quickly explain that. Now, remember, in for those of us that went to school, remember in mathematics they will tell you x is equal to 4 in mathematics. And if you went to school, you understand that x here is a variable holding the value of 4. So you will see, you have seen things like y is equal to 5. So y is also a variable. So what that thing is doing is that the variable x is like a label holding the value 4. It's like a container holding this information. So what is it? For example, let me show you. This is a container. If I pour water into this container, what will be inside? That's what you see. Water will be the content of this container. I hope you are getting that. If I pour milk into this container, what will be inside this container will be milk. So that's the same thing with variable. So the container is the variable. So a variable is a container that holds a value. So one thing that you need to understand is that every variable has a name. A variable has a name. So that name is what identifies that variable. It has a name. For example, the name of this our variable in this example is x. The variable could be age. It could be anything. The variable could be length. The variable could be breadth. So every variable has a name. And also, one thing you should understand about variable is that the variable points to a particular location inside the computer's memory. So a variable points to a particular location inside the computer's memory. It points to a particular, that's why I said a variable is a named memory reference. That means it has a name. It also has a location in the memory. That's what memory reference is. It points to a particular location in the computer memory. And also, a variable holds a value. That means it has value. But in simpler form, a variable is like container used to store information or values that can be used later. Now, one thing you need to know about variables is that variables must be declared. In JavaScript, you must declare a variable before you use them. So variables must be declared before use. I will explain what that means. So before you use a variable, you have to declare the variable. You have to declare the variable. So what does declaration mean? Declaring means that we are reserving a name for it in the memory. So we are saying that this variable will be called X inside the computer's memory. So we are reserving a name for it. So in JavaScript, how do we declare a variable? We declare variables using three keywords. We either use var, var. Many of you have come in contact with that keyword before, or let, or const. So we can use three of these keywords to define variable. We either use var, let, or const. So in the course of this class, I'm going to explain more um, about about that, about var, let, and const. So now let's still push more about declaration of variable. So we said that declaring variable means that we are reserving a name for it in the computer memory. Now, let me give an example. Let me clear my screen. For example, we want to declare a variable called weight. We want to declare a variable called weight. So, as I was saying, if we want to declare a variable called weight, this is how we declare variable. We'll say let weight, then we'll put semicolon in the front. So what we just did is that we just declared a variable. So this is how to declare a variable. So it means that, let me clear this screen. So it means that this variable weight has been is a what's it called, a space in the computer memory has been reserved for it. So what's it called? There is a space in the computer memory for this variable weight. Now, if we write console.log, if we console log weight, if we console log weight, what we have here is undefined. What does that mean? What it means is that we have reserved a space for weight in the computer's memory, but we have not assigned a value to it. So variable declaration is different from initialization. So remember, I told you that every variable must be declared. Variables must be declared before they are used. So we said that declaration means that we are reserving a name for it, isn't it? Declaration means we are reserving a name for it. So there's another concept you need to understand, which is initialization. So initialization means that we are giving it its first value. So we said every variable must be declared before use, and we are not stopping there. So we also need to initialize our variable. So when we initialize our variable, from the word initial, it means that we're giving it its first value. So now we have declared a variable called weight here. Now notice that when we console log weight, what we have is undefined. Now let's assign a value to weight. So at this point we can say weight is equal to 70. So like this, weight now holds the value 70. Now let's see let's comment out this first line. Now let's see what the value of weight will become when we console log weight. Console.log weight. Console.log is how you print um, the content of a variable to the screen. Now, if you notice, look at where my cursor is. In the console, our console is showing 70. Why? Because weight has been initialized to be 70. So, let me put it here. The first line is declaration. This first part is declaration. This second part is initialization. Another thing you need to know is that declaration and initialization can happen on the same line. The one we did here is on different lines, but this stuff can happen on the same line. I hope you guys are following. If you are following, please indicate uh, in the comment section that you are following. Now, as I was saying, that the declaration and initialization can happen on the same line. So let me rewrite this stuff I wrote on the screen. So this can become, instead of saying let wait and writing weight is equal to 70 on different lines, you can say let weight be equal to 70. So now forget about the error that is showing. I will explain why this is showing error when I show you the difference between var, let, and const. But look at the difference between this and this. So what I did in two lines here, the declaration and initialization, I did it in one line here. So if I delete this and console.log wait, let me clear my screen. Console.log which you see that my console on the right hand side here is showing 70. So what I just did here is I declared, I did my declaration and initialization on the same line. So that is that about declaration and initialization. Initialization means assigning it its first value. Declaration means declaring, that's reserving a name for it. So on this line, we reserved a name for it and we assigned it a value. All right. Another thing you need to know about JavaScript is that JavaScript is case sensitive. JavaScript is case sensitive. JavaScript is case sensitive. What do we mean by case sensitive? Look at these three things. Let test is equal to 1 is different from, okay, let me write the three expressions. Okay, I'll write three expressions here. Okay, as I was saying, so there is difference between expression number one, let test be equal to 1, and let test be equal to 2. Look at the third one, let capital letter test be equal to 3. There is difference between these three variables, test small letter, test camel case, and test capital letter. If you let's console log them and see what they will bring out. Let's write the first one. Console.log tst. Look at the first one. Look at what it will give us. The first one gave us 1. Then console.log capital letter test. The second one gave us 2. Okay, let me comment out this one so that you not get confused. Let me clear the screen. Look at that means in this first one, this is what is stored inside. In this second one, this is what is stored inside. And if I change this to uppercase, you see that it will change, it will show me 3. So this is to prove that JavaScript is case sensitive. So whenever you are naming your variable, always make sure that always know that there is difference between this one and this one in JavaScript. So it is case sensitive. JavaScript is case sensitive. So another point you need to know about JavaScript is that the variables in JavaScript are untyped. I will explain what that means. Or you can say the variables in JavaScript are dynamically typed. Don't worry, it's not grammar, it's something it's something very easy. It is not grammar, it is something very easy. So variables in JavaScript are dynamically typed, or they are untyped. What do we mean by this? That the variables in JavaScript are dynamically typed. So dynamically typed means that you don't need to specify the type of variable at runtime. So that means, remember when we're writing our x is equal to 4, this variable x can hold a number, and the same variable x, okay, let me write this in the proper way. Let x be equal to 7. So when JavaScript sees x is equal to 7, it will know that this is a number. You don't need to specify that x is a number in JavaScript. In some other programming languages like C, you will need to specify the data type. I will explain what that means. So what we are saying is that JavaScript does not control what type of value we store in a variable. So if you like, you store x is equal to, um, let me put Tinumbu inside. Excuse me. This x, okay, your variable could be x is equal to Tinumbu. Hmm? JavaScript does not care. Once JavaScript wants to run in its own runtime, it will determine that whether this is a number or whether this is a string. So JavaScript does not control what type of value we store in the variable. S could be anything. S can be Boolean, that's true or false. So what's it called? JavaScript does not control the type of value we store in a variable. So now the next thing I will talk about is data types. Now we have talked about variables, that we say variable is a container. Variables are containers for storing values, for storing values. So now, and we said that so far we said that a variable must be declared before it is used. That you also have to initialize variables, and we also said variables in JavaScript are dynamically typed, and we also said something. So I mentioned something about dynamically typed. Thank you. Dynamically typed. And I said that I'm going to explain what type is. So now in JavaScript or every other programming language, there is what we call data type. Data type. Data type. A data type in programming is the classification of a value that tells computer what kind of data it is and what operations can be performed on it. So in programming, the data type of a value tells the computer what type of data is, what kind of data is. Can you see data type? So it means type of data, data type, type of data, or you can say the nature of data. So for example, if I say x is equal to 4, 4, what type of data is 4? If I say x is equal to Nigeria, what type of data is Nigeria? So in JavaScript, we have different data types. We have numbers, we have strings, we have booleans, and so on. I think in the next class, we are going to talk extensively about data type. In the next class, we'll talk extensively about data type. So we said that every variable has a type, it has a data type. Another thing you should need to understand about variables is that every variable has a scope. The variable has a scope. So what does scope means? Scope of a variable. Scope. So um, scope means the region of a program. I will explain that, where a variable is accessible or visible. So scope means the region of a program where a variable is accessible or visible. Now let's quickly check one example. Look at this example. Let height be equal to 180. Let height be equal to 180. What did we just do? We have declared and initialized the variable height. So now, before I say that, there are different types of scope. There is the global scope. Global, let me put it in comments. Global scope. Global scope means that the variable is available everywhere. It's, the variable is available everywhere. Okay, thank you. So what was I saying? So global scope means that the variable is available everywhere in your program. That's global. Then there is another scope called block scope, and there is also another scope called function scope. So now, in this example, I'll be explaining something about scope of a variable. Now, look at this. This bracket is used to show block, block, block. So, let's say we remember on the first line, we have already defined height to be 180. And inside this curly braces, we want to define, for example, weight to be equal to 70. Don't worry, when I write the code, I will explain what it means. So now, the scope of height is different from the scope of weight. Remember, weight is inside these curly braces, while height is outside of it. So the scope are different. For example, if I want to check for okay, let's console log weight. If you console log weight, you will see that what's it called? Print out 70. Why? Because from inside this place, we can access weight. But okay, let's comment out this console log. Let me copy it. But if I console log this same weight outside this bracket, let's see what will happen. Now look at what is happening. It's telling me that weight is not defined. Let's do it again. Let me comment this out and clear my screen. Now let me uncomment this. If I console log inside of this place, it will tell me that weight is 70. Are you seeing it? But if I do it outside the scope, outside the block here, it will tell me, it will show error. Weight is not defined. I'm going to explain the reason why it is like that. Okay, now let's check something else before I actually give explanation of why it is like that. Now inside this block, let's see whether we can access height. Console.log height. Don't worry, by 9 I'll stop. The class is 1 hour. Okay, now look at, let me run it again. Can you see? Now this variable that is outside here, we can access it inside of here, but the one of that is inside here, we cannot access it outside. So we cannot access it outside. So that talks about scope. Now I will round up this class by explaining the difference between var, let, and const. So that will actually help us understand it very well. So let me change this let to var. Don't worry, you get what I'm trying to say. Let's use this to explain. Okay, instead of doing var, let's stay with let. I will explain let, then I will now explain var. So for let and const, hmm, this let and const. Okay, let me use another example to explain the difference between var, let, and const. Let me start with let and const. Let's take that we have something like this. If true, instead of just using block, let's just use a conditional. In the next class, I will explain what all this if and all these things mean. Let's say we have let a is equal to 30. Hmm? And we have constant, that's const b is equal to 40. Hmm? So now remember that these two, they are defined within what's it called, within this bracket. Okay, which error is it showing? So notice something, that this a and b, we define them inside this curly braces. Now if you console dot log a and b, console.log a and b, you get 30 and 40. Why? Because let and const can be accessed, they are accessible inside this block. So we can safely say that let and const are block scoped. So let and const, please be patient with me, I will explain. Let and const are block scoped. So it means that you can only access any variable defined by let and const inside the same block. If we try to do something like this, let me copy this console log and put it outside the block. You see what will happen? It will show error. If I define it outside the block, let me clear the screen. See, it's showing me error. Why? Because you cannot access A and B outside this block that you defined it. Please, do you understand what I'm saying? If you understand, let me know in the comment section. So you cannot access A and B outside that block, outside the curly braces there. So why? Because the scope of let and const, they are within this block here. You can't access them outside the block. You can't access them outside the block. So we can safely say that let and const are block scoped. They are block scoped. Now, what about var? One thing you should understand is that var is function scoped. What does it mean? I know I've not explained what a function is. Um, a function, what's it called? Is a reusable piece of code. Is a reusable piece of code. But don't worry, in the subsequent class, I will explain function properly. Now, let me quickly give one example so that you understand what I mean by let and const can only be accessed within the block, not outside the block, while var can be accessed within a function but cannot be accessed outside the function. var, okay, now let's test something. Let's say we do var c is equal to 50. Let's see, can we access c outside this block? Constant, what's it called? I'm sorry, console.log c. Let's see. Is oh console console.log. see. Notice that when you defined var inside the block, you are able to access it outside the block. But when you defined let and const inside the block, you are not able to access it outside the block. That's what we mean by let and const are block scope. So if you define variable inside the block, you'll be able to access it outside the block. Now let's focus on var. Now let's quickly write a function hello. So this is how you write a function in JavaScript. This is how you write a function in JavaScript. Now let's initialize our variable x is equal to 10. So now let's initialize our variable x is equal to 10. Now let's console log it. I want to use it to explain something. If you press console.log, so now if I run the function hello, notice that it is console logging 10 for me. Why? Because var is function scope. I define var within the function and I'm able to access it within the function. Now let me try to access this same, what's it called? This same um, x outside the function hello. Now let's console.log x. Let me clear my screen before I put this. Console.log x. You see that it will show me error. Now, can you see what did it say? It said uncut reference error. X is not defined. So it means that this X, since it is defined by var, it can only be accessed within the function, not outside that function. So we said that var is function scope, while let and const are block scope. Now this is 9 o'clock already. We have to keep to time. So let me summarize everything we have said so far. So apart from defining what a programming language is, we said that, okay, when we're talking about JavaScript, we said that a variable is like a container used to store information or value that can be reused or modified. We said variables must be declared before use. We said declaration and initialization can happen on the same line. Now we said that initialization means giving it its first value, and I explained that JavaScript is case sensitive, that capital letter T is not the same thing as small letter t in JavaScript. And I also said variables in JavaScript are dynamically typed. So it means that JavaScript will not control the type of values we store in variables. And I explained what data type is, that data type in programming is the classification of a value that tells the computer what kind of data it is and what operation can be performed on it. And we said example of data types: strings, numbers, boolean, etc. And we said the scope of a variable refers to the region of a program where the variable is accessible or visible. And we also ended the class by saying that var is function scoped. var is function scoped, and we said that let and const are block scoped. We said that let and const are block scoped. So that is that about that. So today's class was just an introduction, and I hope I um, did a great job. I hope you learned something. This is the first time I'm going live on TikTok, and this is awesome. I hope you learned something. Please indicate in the comment section if you learned something. Okay, Chiamaka, I can see you. Thank you very much. And I know that the more we do this, the more it gets better. And please, let's tell others about this. Okay, wow, wow, wow. I'm glad you understand scope better now. Yeah. The next class is going to be far, far, far better than this by the grace of God. Please, and also on the WhatsApp group, let them know that you learned something. So thank you very much for your time. I will talk on the WhatsApp group, and also for anyone that needs the link to the WhatsApp group, you can send message, you can DM me, you can send message to me on TikTok here so that